It's been a long road to get to Starfield. 8 years is a long time to wait for anything, but it feels like an eternity since we've last had our hands on a brand new single-player Bethesda RPG. People have grown up, gone to college, and started families in the time between now and the release of Fallout 4 back in 2015. It's been years in the making, filled with teasers and rumours, all culminating in not only Bethesda's most anticipated game to date, but one of the most anticipated Xbox launches of the past decade. For many, we expected this to be one giant leap into the next iteration of Bethesda RPGs. However, what we received instead feels more like a solid, but smaller step. Starfield is Bethesda's first new universe in over 25 years, and their debut title as part of Xbox Game Studios. It's a bold and massive endeavour, with thousands of planets to explore, hundreds of quests to find, and a whole array of new systems and mechanics for players to get their teeth sunk into. It's full of some of the best characters this team have ever created, and dozens of breathtaking moments that kept me constantly engaged throughout my 65-hour first playthrough. But it also brings all the dated creation engine staples you've come to expect from prior entries along for the ride. Starfield is a Bethesda game through and through, janky animations and encumbrance included. But is it worth sitting through all that to get to the heart of this epic adventure? Let's talk about it. Starfield takes place in the year 2330, around 200 years after humanity has fled the Earth to explore the stars. Our story takes place in the Settled Systems, where you take control of a miner working for Argus Extractors. It's here your character comes across a strange metal artifact that gives you a vision beyond your comprehension. After discussing this experience with its buyer Barrett, he sends you to a group known as Constellation, a small group of explorers tasked with solving the secrets of the universe. With the help of their leader Sarah Morgan, you're tasked with finding more of these artifacts and discovering the true meaning behind them and their visions. This is just the starting point though. From here, you're free to continue down the main path or explore the stars to your heart's content. And that's the real beauty behind the Bethesda formula. For example, I was immediately swept away into a museum chronicling the creation of the United Colonies and offered basic training, which turned into an 8-hour epic adventure discovering the mystery behind an alien race called the Terramorphs. From there, I journeyed further, finding odd jobs on random planets and discovering what the vastness of space had to offer. Before I knew it, 15 hours had passed without me ever going back to the main story. The universe Todd and his team have created and the lore it contains are the obvious highlight of Starfield. Whether it's exploring Neon and seeing the shady underbelly of the Settled Systems, to the Cowboy Bebop-esque lands found in Aquila City and the Freestar Collective. I've rarely been as engrossed with a game world as I have been with Starfield. Whether it's working shady deals for a major corporation one day, or joining the Freestar Rangers another, there's always something to do around every corner, and it all feels substantial and complementary to not only the world, but the story I'm creating. There was never a point where I felt obliged to do something for a reward or for progression, as it all felt natural and enhanced by the excellent job the game does of making you feel like a part of this universe. Roleplay has always been a big part of Bethesda's RPGs in the past, but it seems to especially click here in Starfield. This is due to many factors, such as the impressive character creator and abundance of dialogue options, but I feel one major reason is the new introduction of character backgrounds and traits. Similar to races in Elder Scrolls, backgrounds allow you to get a head start on some skills, while giving your character some flavour to carry through your playthrough. From bounty hunters to soldiers, this system not only allows you to specialise in your strong suits, but also provides additional opportunities within dialogue to show your expertise. This is enhanced further with the trait system, allowing you to select up to 3 additional perks at the start of the game. These can be small, such as allegiances to factions or extroverted qualities, to larger traits such as constantly being trailed by bounty hunters. My choices affected my playthrough greatly. Kids stuff allowed me to have parents who showed up at various points in the story, which gave me a real link to the world, and that's something that many games lack. The adoring fan returns from Oblivion, which I had to equip. He was jump scaring me every time he appeared until I allowed him to join my crew. From houses with mortgages to silly perks, these traits really do make the game feel special, and I had a blast seeing how much these affected the way I played the game. This role-playing attitude continued throughout my entire playthrough, making each choice and relationship matter to me as much as they did my character. I romanced Sarah as I resonated with her story and her persevering nature. My best friend was Andrea, as she didn't judge me for what I did, but for who I was as a person. The game allowed me to attach to these characters and does an excellent job in making it all feel important by the time you reach the end. Despite pushing it off for a majority of my playthrough, the main story is easily one of the strongest in Bethesda's history. Plenty of twists and a really clever use of New Game Plus really amplify it for me. even when it really just does end up being a giant fetch quest. This game doesn't expect you to do everything that's possible in a first playthrough, and thanks to the addition of New Game Plus, I can see people carrying on their characters for many years to come. At the heart of Starfield is your usual Fallout-esque gameplay system, albeit with improved aiming and a thruster pack. Gone are the VAT systems, replaced with Skyrim-esque powers that allow you to perform a range of actions from turning invisible to reanimation. Weapon and base crafting return from prior games, along with a new sprawling progression system that requires you to complete challenges prior to further progressing your skills. It's a nice gameplay loop that I can't help but think is slightly unnecessary due to the lack of enemy variety and overall difficulty over the course of the base experience. The same can be said for planetary exploration. The variety in biomes, fauna, and density are all fun to explore for the first time, but exploration mechanics such as scanning and mining really leave something to be desired. The lack of vehicles is almost comical, and having to walk sometimes miles of barren terrain for the same few base types and landmarks had me wishing for fewer, well-crafted places to explore. These procedural areas do add size and scope to the settled systems, but I felt little desire to continue after the first few planets. Speaking of a chore, the same is true when it comes to the awfully dated menus and encumbrance systems. Yes, the weight limit returns, and it's somehow even worse in space. 90% of the travel in this game is done by fast travel, due to the nature of the isolated planets. So having a system that disables it when encumbered was always going to feel terrible. That, the clunkiness of the settled systems map, and the lack of any map in settlements make optional exploration feel like more bother than it's actually worth. On the other hand, the other major gameplay type, starship fighting and exploration, are honestly a joy to play. The controls, although clunky, provide a wide range of gameplay styles, making for some challenging but entertaining combat encounters. This is matched by the extensive ship builder that allows you to make the ship of your dreams. From just tweaking base ships the game provides, to building ships from your favourite shows and movies from scratch, the amount of customization for a relatively small part of the game is ludicrous. I've never got sick of watching my ship go to lightspeed or dock at a nearby space station, and the random encounters are a cherry on top. From scammers trying to sell me an extended ship warranty, to a sea shanty singing ship that made my entire evening, it had me wishing the same amount of love and intrigue could be found in planetary exploration. Presentation on the whole is rather solid. Thanks to Creation Engine 2.0, Starfield is quite a huge step up from its predecessor Fallout 4. Environments are well realised, with some of the planets having some of the most stunning visuals I've seen in a long period of time. The way a planet's rings move in real time, while the stars and other planets can be seen in their orbits from miles away, it really is beautiful. Settlements and outposts are also visually pleasing, but feel dated in contrast to other releases we've seen this year. The way Neon and New Atlantis look are fine, but they often feel like corridors and mazes rather than large cities begging to be explored. Character models also feel dated, especially when it comes to Bethesda's facial animation tech, which can make the whole visual experience feel generations behind. There's this uncanny value when looking at a lot of characters talking in Starfield, and depending on the lighting found within the scene, can make back-to-back cutscenes feel like they are from completely different games. Luckily, character performances make up for that in spades. Sarah, Sam, Andrea and Barrett all have wonderful performances that I really connected with, and the same can be said for side characters too. The performances really do feel like the heart of Starfield, and despite a few rough edges here and there, really allow the story and universe to come to life. It's all brought together by a fabulous, awe-inducing soundtrack that really does emphasise the wonders of exploration and discovering the universe. It may be rough around those edges, but it still feels like it comes together rather well. Starfield often feels like a game dragged out of 2015. Its systems are dated, facial animation simplistic, and pacing glacial. It's a game that knows its problems and asks you to look through them to see the potential beneath. For some it won't work, but for me it happens to be one of my favourite games I've played this year. I understand the game won't be for everyone's tastes, but for me, the experience that lies at the centre of Starfield was worth dealing with all its problems. It's one of the strongest stories in Bethesda history, has some of the best side quests I've experienced in an RPG to date, and has some jaw-dropping moments that had me on the edge of my seat. Starfield is a game that I feel you get about as much as you put in. If you are someone like me who likes to roleplay, explore character relationships, and see what the universe has to offer, it's a fully engrossing experience. From the time I started it on holiday to the time I rolled credits over 65 hours later, I couldn't stop thinking about this game. I adored my time with Starfield, and can happily recommend it to those willing to brush off a few rough edges. But if you are not in love with Bethesda's prior games, I don't believe Starfield will win you over in the end. I truly hope that Bethesda eventually comes back to the world of Starfield and it becomes a tentpole series like the Elder Scrolls and Fallout. It's a universe I would love to explore again in the future, with lessons and further experience under their belt. But for now, it's really time for Bethesda to innovate. The cracks in their systems are really starting to show, and I hope they use the Elder Scrolls 6 to truly bring themselves into the current landscape of gaming. Starfield is a wonderful small step in the right direction, but it's time for that giant leap.